Hey guys. If you are an author who does audiobooks, you have probably opened up your ACX today and got their lovely little message that they are no longer paying for promotional codes. Now, for some people, this is probably not a big deal, but for others of us, it is a very big deal. I started doing audiobooks about 2 years ago, and I didn't know that they paid for promotional codes. So I originally went with ACX and Findaway Voices. And then people were talking about all this money that they were making, and I was thinking, I'm not making nearly that much money. And that's when I found out that ACX paid for promotional codes. So I pulled all my books and went exclusive to ACX because I knew then I would at least get something for my audiobooks from those 100 codes that ACX paid you for. However, as of today, ACX is no longer paying for those promotional codes. So what does this mean for you? What does it mean for narrators? And what does it mean that you should do going forward? I don't have all those answers for you, but I'm going to set up kind of what I do know and walk you through. So the first thing is this: there are going to be a lot fewer quality narrators willing to do royalty share because the way that royalty share worked was we get paid 20% of your profits, your audiobooks profits for 7 years. When ACX was paying for codes, I could go in and I could look at a book and I could say, okay, you know, this is a newer author. Maybe this book is going to be great. Maybe it won't, but at least I have these 100 codes that I'm going to get paid for. And therefore, as a narrator, I could take a chance on a lot more books that maybe aren't going to, make a ton of money out there, but it would at least earn me my money back. Now, without those promotional codes being paid, you are going to find a lot fewer narrators, quality narrators, who are going to want to do royalty share. Because what is going to happen is those narrators are going to spend between 10 and 15 hours generally recording your audiobook, editing your audiobook, uploading all of the files, and they're not going to get paid for it. Unless your book just really takes off and does well. So you are going to find that most of your quality narrators are no longer going to be doing royalty share, myself included. I am not going to offer that as an option because it is no longer cost effective for my time. I will talk about what I am offering for those of you who are interested, but let's talk about the other options that you have. So that leaves you with two options, basically, if you go through ACX. You can choose royalty share plus, which might allow you to get some of those narrators who won't do completely royalty share, but they'll do royalty share plus, or you can do pay per hour. Now, let me discuss these two because some people get really confused by them, and I will tell you what I think as both an author and a narrator. Royalty share plus is generally nice for a narrator, and here's the reason why. What royalty share plus says is that you are going to pay me a lessened fee to record your book. So in other words, if my normal rate is $200 per hour, maybe I'll record your book for $100 an hour or $50 an hour, okay? But you're also going to pay me 20% of your sales for the next 7 years. Now, if I'm a narrator, that's not a terrible deal. That tells me that I'm going to at least make some money off of your book, even if it doesn't do well once it gets to sales. And so therefore, maybe I'm willing to take that lesser payment up front in hopes that it does well on the back end. And so you may be able to get some higher quality narrators who will do this for you at a lower pay per hour amount. But keeping in mind, your pay per hour amount is based on the total of the book production. So if you have a 50,000 word book, it's generally about 5 hours recording. So even at $50 an hour, that you're looking at $250 that you're going to pay upfront to your narrator. And then you are going to give them 20% of your profits for the next 7 years. So as a narrator standpoint, this isn't a bad deal. And I am still offering royalty plus on mine because of that. So I will take a chance with some books that have good reviews and do a lesser fee up front and then this option. But I will tell you that from an author standpoint, this really isn't a great deal for you because you are going to end up having to pay upfront for your narrator a fee, and you're going to give them 20% of your sales for 7 years, and you're locked in for 7 years. And so if you choose to do this route, please, please, please make sure that you're A, happy with your narrator, and that B, you really can't afford to just pay their per hour rate, okay? Because the other option is pay per hour rate. If you are an author starting out, I know this is really, really hard because it's a lot of money up front and you don't know if you're gonna make it back in the end. But let me explain what pay per hour rate does. You pay your narrator an hourly rate for the audiobook. Now, remember, I told you it takes me between 10 and 15 hours to completely record, edit, and upload all those audiobook files. But you don't pay me for the whole 15 hours. You pay me for whatever the amount of the book is at the end. So generally speaking, between 4 and 7 hours, unless you have much larger books, okay? So you're looking at whatever the price your narrator charges. So let's say it's $100. You're looking at between $400 and $700 upfront. Okay, that's a lot to swallow. But here is why I think it is much more beneficial if you can afford it to do it that way. As when you get those files, once you've paid for them and you get those files, you then can decide if you want to stay exclusive with ACX and make 40% of your sales, which allows you to recoup them faster, or you can take those files, you can be non-exclusive with ACX, and you can take your files and add them onto Findaway Voices. And that's really what I want to talk to you guys about today, because a lot of us authors are now in this position of trying to decide, is it worth it to stay with ACX exclusive since we're not getting paid for those promo codes, or is it not? So I have a couple of things. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see this. So there are a couple of things to think about. If you go exclusive with ACX, and hopefully I have this pulled up to the royalties. Okay, if you go exclusive to ACX, ACX distributes your audiobook to Audible, iBooks, and Amazon.com, okay? Where is the royalty rate? Shoot, I missed it. Okay, so basically, let me see if I can get back to it. But basically, you are gonna get paid 40% of your book sales if you, hold on, let me see if I can find it real quick. Authors. If you put it through ACX exclusive, okay? So the nice part is that you do get a little bit more if you go exclusive through ACX. If you do not go exclusive through ACX, then, oh, here we go. Then you take a little bit of a hit up front, but I will talk to you in a second about Findaway Voices and tell you why it might actually be better. Okay, so what royalty is paid on ACX? Let's see if this will take me. Sometimes it's really hard to find their stuff. All right, so ACX publishers pay 40% of the royalty. So the thing about ACX though is ACX also sets your price. So they set a lot of their books at $14.99 or $19.99. So let's take a $19.99 book because that's pretty even. So if you have a $20 book basically, okay, so $19.99, if you purchase your files, in other words, you pay per hour, you're going to make 40% of that, which means for each of those books that you sell, you're going to make about $8. Now, if you've paid $700 for that, right? $700 divided by 8, you need to sell 88 audiobooks to even break even, okay? That's a lot of audiobooks. Now, that's not necessarily not doable because it certainly is, but it is harder without getting those 100 promo codes right up at front to help cover the cost. When they were paying for those promo codes, you could pretty much cover the cost of hiring a narrator. You can't do that anymore. So, but the other option is that this locks you into ACX. So you cannot put your audiobook anywhere else, right? You can only have it on those ACX channels. Now, there is another company called Findaway Voices, and I have this pulled up correctly here. So Findaway Voices is another audio company, and they also will distribute your book. Now, they will distribute to all of these places that you see on my screen. Something that's really nice about them is they actually pay higher for Apple Books than ACX does, even if you're exclusive. Okay, so ACX will pay you 40%. Findaway Voices will pay you 45%. I don't know how many of my books get sold on iBooks versus Audible. My guess is that Audible is still probably the biggest retailer. And so you're going to have to kind of do a cost comparison. But if you look at this list, right, you have basically two options going forward now. You can stay exclusive with ACX and make 40% of your sales, or you can be non-exclusive with ACX. You'll get 25% of your sales on Audible and Amazon.com. You'll get 45% of your sales on iTunes and all of these distributions. Okay, so audiobooks.com, Audiobooks Now, Google, Nook, those are paying 50%. Their subscription services, it's kind of like a KDP, the KDP with the Kindle Unlimited, except that you're not locked in, okay? And then you have these revenue share plays. The best part that I think is the library ones. A lot of people are listening to audiobooks in libraries now. They pay you a small percentage, just so you guys know, like depending on how you price your book. So if it's $15 or under, you're only going to get paid 99 cents every time someone checks out your book. But it happens a lot. So pretty much daily, when I had my books over here, somebody was checking out my book. So yes, 99 cents a day doesn't sound like a lot, but 99 cents a day times however many books you have put up can start to equal a much bigger amount. Okay, so definitely something to think about with Findaway Voices. The other really nice thing about Findaway Voices is that you're not locked into any sort of contract. So if you decide that you don't like them, you can pull them. You don't have to be exclusive to Findaway Voices. The other thing is that you can set your price. I think that ACX puts audiobooks a little bit higher than people can really afford to pay most times. So if you go through Findaway Voices, you can actually set your price. So you can decide, I want to price my book at $9.99 and make 50% of that sale rather than putting it at $19.99 and maybe not getting as many sales. Okay, so you get to decide your price. Findaway Voices also does promotional things. So like once a month, you can set a book on sale, and they have promotional opportunities that they offer where they will talk about your book. And you also have the option to do Chirp. Now, Chirp is like BookBub, only for audiobooks. So, but yes, it's hard to get into. And right now, I think it's still in the beta phase. So they haven't even opened it up to a lot of authors. But eventually it's going to be like a BookBub for audiobooks, where you can submit your audiobook, you can drop the price, and then they will send it out to all of their Chirp listeners. So for that reason, for me specifically, I think it makes much more sense knowing that this thing has come down with ACX to pull my books and start putting them wide distribution. But you have to take a look at that cost for you. Is the 20, well, I guess it's really only 15%. Is the 15% more that you're going to make if you stay exclusive with ACX, is that worth it to lose all of this possible income from Findaway Voices? Because remember, if you're exclusive with ACX, you're going to get paid 40%. If you're non-exclusive, you're going to get paid 25%. But here's the biggest thing that I want you to know. You're not locked out of ACX. If you go with Findaway Voices, you get to take advantage of all of their incomes, plus you are still on Audible and you're still on Amazon.com. You just take a smaller percentage of your sales on those sites. Okay. Now, the other thing to think about is ACX is still giving you promotional codes. They're just not paying you for them. But the way that they have it set up now is that you can only get 25 codes per country, so 25 US and 25 UK. Then they will not give you any more codes until you sell 100 books. So you're only going to really have about 25 codes to give away. If you go with Findaway Voices, you will not get codes through ACX, but you do get codes through Findaway Voices. Now, I cannot remember, but there is one of the countries that you lose. So with like ACX, I think you could do US, UK, and I think maybe Canada or something could get in on one of those. With Findaway Voices, I think you can get Australia, but you might lose Canada. So you might also take a look at where your listeners are, because some of them won't be able to get the codes. But if you're worried about losing your codes, if you don't go with exclusive with ACX, Findaway Voices also offers you codes. And I believe they offer up to 100 codes, and you don't have to wait until you sell 100 copies of your ebook. So you can actually have those 100 codes to still give out, to still get reviews, They don't pay for those promotional codes either, but they never have. Okay. So then that comes to the tricky point of if you are an author wanting to get started, and let me see, this is my wrong information here. How do you do that? So this is my actual author page for Findaway Voices. So if I go into my audiobooks, I'm going to want to click on new project. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. You're not going to want to do this one here that says work with a narrator, because the way Findaway Voices is set up, you'll have to pay 50% of the production cost plus give them 20% of your royalty, which actually would end up costing you a lot more in the long run. And one of my authors told me that their lowest price is $450 an hour. So you're not going to want to do it this way. What you're going to want to do is sell an existing audiobook. So for most of you, you're going to want to start with your book in ACX, non-exclusive. Let your narrator record all the files, upload them to those files through ACX, non-exclusive, pay them for whatever the rate of the book is. Then you're going to want to come over here to sell existing audiobook, because now you have those files. So you can actually download the files from your ACX dashboard once your narrator has put them up. Okay, so I actually have one already started. So I'm going to click down here because I was messing around with it this morning to see what happens. So this is my newest book, Love on the Line, that's going to go live. All I did right now was put the title in. Okay, so I can still go in. I need to go back in and edit this, right? And figure out the subtitle, the description, all of that information. And then I will have those files that I will have taken from ACX. For me, I don't go that route, but for you, you would have all those files and you would then upload your files, okay? And it says standard distribution. You can change your distribution. So here's a couple of new things. The Nook royalty rates have increased. So there's a lot of information on here. You can read through the distribution agreement. There's Findaway Voices. There's one that's a little bit more in depth and I need to do a little more reading on it. But I think it's kind of like Kobo Plus, where it's a subscription service and they market it. And I don't know if it's cost effective yet. So I'll come back when I know that information. But for most of you, you're probably going to want to start with ACX first. Set it up as non-exclusive, pay your narrator like you normally would, get the files uploaded for that book. And then when you're in that ACX dashboard, you can always download those files. You then download those files because you own them. You come over here to Findaway Voices and you set up your account and you publish it through Findaway Voices. Now, one more thing I will say is Findaway Voices is a little bit slower in pushing out audiobooks than ACX is. ACX used to be great and you could put a book up and be out in like 10 days and now it's taking them about a month. That's about what Findaway Voices was taking the last time I used them. So I don't know exactly where they are now. I will let you know in an updated video once I do Love on the Line, and I'll walk you guys through when I get done with it. I still need to finish recording it. The other option that you might have, and I would caution you on this, is if you have a really good relation with your narrator, you may be able to bypass ACX altogether and just upload through Findaway Voices. Now, if you don't have a good relationship with your narrator, or if you are a narrator and you don't have a great relationship with your author, it's a new author, I would not recommend this. And the reason being is ACX has sort of a safeguard in there where, yes, you don't have to pay before your narrator records them all, but you have to pay before the book gets released to sale. Okay. And so there's sort of that safeguard. You don't have that with Findaway Voices if you upload these files. Well, you sort of do, but you're kind of at the mercy of your narrator / author. So if you want to avoid ACX altogether, right, you can reach out to someone like myself who you know narrates, or if you have a narrator, and you can say, look, I want to upload directly through ACX or through Findaway Voices. Can you tell me how much it would cost for the files? And then you would pay them, and then they would send you the files. Okay, so there is that option for those of you who don't want to have to be looking in two different places, and I totally get that. And I have several authors that I absolutely trust and would do that with them, where I know that if I spend the time recording their audiobook, they're going to pay me for the time I spent, right? And since we generally do through PayPal or Venmo or something like that, and I always send an invoice receipt, they know that they're getting charged what the actual amount of the book was. So if that's the case, I would then record all of their files. I would total up how many that's going to be, like what the hours are, and then I would send them in like a Dropbox format or something like that. The other option you could do is you could possibly have it where your narrator has access to your account where they can upload the files for you. Again, make sure that you really trust your narrator or your author before you're doing that. But that will keep you from having to do two separate steps and having to wait. So there is that option available. So what that means for you guys now is you have to think of new ways to start promoting your audiobook. Audiobooks can make you money. But I will tell you, and I'm going to be totally upfront here, guys, before I knew about paid promotional codes, I was generally making $200 to $300 a month off of my audiobooks. Once I knew about codes and I was actually giving away all my codes and getting like people listening, that number grew to 2,000 or 3,000 a month. So this is a huge hit on my income coming in. And I want you to know that going forward, you're not going to start making thousands of dollars on your audiobooks. So don't jump into this paying per hour if you know you don't have a year or so to be able to make that money back. I do believe you will make back the money that you spend on a good narrator, but it's not going to be immediate. So don't expect that it's going to come in month 1, 2, 3, unless you're just really amazing at promotions. So it's definitely going to change the way that you promote your audiobooks. You're going to have to find a way to get people to purchase them and not just use your free codes. And we all know as authors, we struggle with that anyway, trying to get people to purchase our books instead of always just taking the free copies. So yes, you'll still have codes to give away, but you're not going to get paid for them. And they're really there to help you with reviews. So you're going to want to make sure you really give them to people who are going to leave you a review. If they're not going to leave you a review, it's not very helpful for you to give them a free code. Okay. So you're going to have to think about the way that you change your promotional strategies. You're going to have to sit down and decide if it's worth it for you to go non-exclusive or if you should still stay exclusive. Now, I am waiting to hear back from ACX. Their initial contract says that once you upload a book, you're locked in for 7 years. But I have heard people say that after your book has been with them for a year, if you own the files, then you can ask to be let out of your contract. So that's another thing to think about. If you are not doing royalty share, if you actually pay per hour, even if you can't get out of your contract immediately, you may be able to get out after a year and then pull it wide. But my question for you is this: is it really worth it for that year to lose all of these sales and library checkouts that you could be getting from Findaway Voices? And that's something you have to decide. Now, I told you that I would have sort of a little information about myself as a narrator that I would put at the end of this, because some of you are probably a little shell-shocked like I am. I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that I have about 6 more books that I accepted royalty share on that I'm probably not going to make money back on, which is really daunting considering it's going to take me about 60 hours of work. And it's going to take a long time before I really get paid back for that. So I am no longer doing royalty share for that reason, just because I haven't found the best way to promote audiobooks yet. And so it's not cost effective for me. But what I am offering at this point is that if you are, especially if you're a new author starting out, I am offering $100 pay per hour. So most of the really good narrators you're going to find are going to be upwards of 300 or 400. You are welcome to listen to my samples. I'm going to offer $100 pay per hour for a while to help people get started before I up my rates. Because at $100 an hour, I still feel like I'm getting paid for my time, but it's affordable enough that authors just starting out will hopefully be able to do that way and own their own files. So if that is something that you are interested in, please reach out to me before you send me anything on ACX or Findaway Voices, because I do have a queue right now and I want to let you know how long it would take before I could get to your book. But I'm certainly offering that for people, especially people who are hit really hard by this and know that they're not going to get great narrators from royalty share in the future. There probably will still be people who do royalty share, and maybe you'll get really lucky and find a good narrator. But I wouldn't count on it. And they're not going to be necessarily knowledgeable on how to promote your book either. So then you're going to have to do double the promotion to really make back what you could if you had paid per hour. So I hope that helps. When I get done with Love on the Line, I will come back and I will walk through as I upload it. I'll let you guys see everything that I do. Again, it'll look slightly different because I record on my computer, so I actually have all the files. But at least you'll kind of get to see the process. If you've never done Findaway Voices before, it's really not that tricky. It's pretty self-explanatory like ACX, but the first time can be a little daunting. So I will walk you through that, how to upload those files. And then if you have any questions, then you can leave them in the comments, and I will answer those questions in the next video as well. You're also welcome to reach out to me on Facebook through Instant Messenger. So I'm under Lorena Hannah Hoops. You can reach out to me and let me know if you have any questions. I will happily share whatever information and knowledge that I have. It's not a plethora of information, but I have used both platforms before, and I'm certainly happy to share my experience and try to help anybody I can who's in this position. I also offered this to all of my authors who I was working with. And so some of you may want to check with your narrators if you were pay per hour as well. I offered to my authors that if I have a book with you contracted, but I haven't started really recording it yet or finished it, I am willing to dissolve the contract and start fresh if you want to go non-exclusive. And I am offering that because I honestly think you're going to make more money in the long run if you go non-exclusive and use both ACX and Findaway Voices than if you stay exclusive with ACX. You may find that that doesn't work for you and you may want to leave your books exclusive, and that's totally fine. But if you are like me and you're thinking you're probably going to end up making more, you might check with your narrator. They might also be willing to do that. So for any of my clients who I already have on the books, if we have a pay per hour agreement, you can reach out to me. I will happily dissolve those contracts and then we can restart them being non-exclusive. For any books that are sitting in queue, like they're already recorded and they're waiting, right now it's a waiting game to find out what ACX is going to do. My suggestion would be to reach out to them and let them know that had you known this was coming, you would have changed your distribution strategy and see if you can get them pulled to go wide. That's what I'm doing, but I haven't heard back from ACX yet. But that's all I can suggest at this point. As soon as I get information, I will let you guys know. But thank you for my amazing authors who are working with me. Thank you for everybody who is watching this. I hope this has been helpful and beneficial for you. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks, guys. Okay, I can't get it to end. That's what happens when I stop the screen sharing. There we go. Okay. Stop.